The massive space station called Unity's Edge floated in the dark space between three star systems. It was bigger than most moons, with metal walls that stretched for miles in every direction. Today, it housed the most important meeting in galactic history. Commander Alex Stone walked through the long hallways of the station. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. Around him, aliens from 12 different worlds moved with purpose. Some had scales that glittered under the bright lights. Others had wings that folded against their backs. A few glowed with their own inner light. Alex was the only human in sight. He reached the main council chamber and stopped at the entrance. The room was huge, with a dome-shaped ceiling that showed the stars outside. 12 seats formed a circle in the center, each one designed for a different type of alien body. The human seat looked small and simple compared to the others. "Another waste of time," grumbled a voice behind Alex. He turned to see General Corks, of the Vorth people. The reptilian alien stood 8 feet tall with dark green scales and yellow eyes that never seemed to blink. "Humans should not even be here. You have been in space for only 50 years. Alex nodded politely. "We're still learning, General." Corks made a sound like a laugh, but it was not friendly. "Learning, while real civilizations fight and die, you play with your little ships." The general walked past Alex into the chamber. Other delegates were already taking their seats. Alex watched them for a moment before following. Queen Nira of the Krill sat in a chair that looked like a giant flower. Her insect-like body was covered in shining black armor, and her large eyes reflected the room's lights. She was talking to Elder Zane of the Lumens, whose body seemed to be made of pure energy that changed colors as he spoke. "The hive worlds need more space," Queen Nira was saying. Her voice buzzed slightly. "Our eggs number in the billions. We must expand, or our young will die." Elder Zane's light grew brighter. "The lumens claim the energy-rich sectors by right of spiritual need. We have meditated on these worlds for centuries." "Meditation does not give you ownership," rumbled another voice. This came from Chancellor Rex of the Iron Brotherhood, a race of beings that looked like walking metal statues. "Only strength matters in the galaxy." Alex took his seat and listened as more delegates arrived. Each brought the same message. Their people needed more resources, more space, more power. Each was ready to fight for it. The meeting began when Admiral Kesh of the Star Wanderers called for order. The Star Wanderers were old, maybe the oldest race in the galaxy. Admiral Kesh looked like a tall, thin human, but his skin was silver and his eyes held the wisdom of 1,000 years. "We face the greatest crisis in galactic history," Admiral Kesh said. His voice was calm but serious. "The endless conflict has raged for 300 years. Billions have died. Entire worlds lie in ruins. We must find a solution, or the galaxy will destroy itself." General Corks stood up first. "The solution is simple. The Vorth Empire will lead. Our military is the strongest. Our weapons are the most advanced. Submit to our rule, and there will be peace." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Queen Nira's buzzing grew louder. "The Krill will never bow to reptilian overlords. Our swarms will darken your skies." Elder Zane's light flashed red. "The lumens reject all claims of material dominance. Only spiritual enlightenment can bring true peace." Chancellor Rex's metal fist hit his chair's arm. "Peace comes from strength, not from glowing meditation." The argument continued for hours. Each race presented their battle plans. The Vorth showed holographic displays of their new planet-killer weapons. The Krill demonstrated swarm attack patterns that could overwhelm any defense. The Lumens spoke of energy beams that could drain the power from entire fleets. Alex listened to it all. He watched the passion in their voices, the fear in their eyes, the desperation in their movements. These beings truly believed that war was the only answer. When the presentations ended, Admiral Kesh asked if anyone else had ideas. The chamber grew quiet. Most delegates looked bored or tired. A few checked their communication devices. Alex stood up slowly. The chamber remained quiet, but now the silence felt different. 12 pairs of alien eyes turned to look at the lone human. Some showed curiosity. Others showed annoyance. "Commander Stone," Admiral Kesh said, "do you have something to share?" Alex looked around the circle of faces. His heart beat faster, but his voice stayed calm. "What if we just stopped fighting?" For a moment, nobody moved. Then General Corks began to laugh. It was a harsh, barking sound. Soon other delegates joined in. Queen Nira's buzzing became a high-pitched trill of amusement. Elder Zane's light flickered with what might have been laughter. "Stopped fighting," General Corks managed to say between laughs. "Human, do you understand anything about the galaxy?" Chancellor Rex's voice boomed through the chamber. "War is the natural order. It is how the strong survive and the weak perish." "Queen-o." Nira leaned forward in her flower chair. "Conflict drives evolution. Without it, species become soft and die." Elder Zane's voice was gentler but still dismissive. "Young human, your species has not lived long enough to understand. Peace is a beautiful dream, but reality is struggle." Alex waited for the laughter to die down. "But what if it doesn't have to be?" "It has always been this way," Admiral Kesh said kindly. "Every civilization in this galaxy grew strong through conflict. We fought our neighbors, conquered new worlds, defended our territories. This is how life works." "Maybe," Alex said. "But maybe there's another way." General Corks stopped laughing. His yellow eyes narrowed. "Are you suggesting that humans are different? That you are somehow better than the rest of us?" The chamber grew tense. Alex felt the weight of their stares. "No, General. I'm just wondering if we've all been looking at this wrong." "Wrong." Queen Nira's voice rose. 300 years of warfare and a 50-year-old species thinks we're wrong?" Chancellor Rex stood up, his metal body making grinding sounds. "Perhaps the humans need to learn some harsh lessons about galactic reality." Admiral Kesh raised his hand for silence. "Enough. Commander Stone, we appreciate your optimism, but you must understand that war is not a choice. It is a necessity. Resources are limited. Space is vast, but not infinite. When different needs collide, conflict is inevitable." Alex nodded. "I understand what you're saying, Admiral. I just think there might be options we haven't considered yet." Elder Zane's light dimmed to a soft blue. "What options, young human?" Alex was quiet for a moment. He seemed to be thinking carefully about his words. "I'm not sure yet, but my people would like some time to study the problem," General Corks snorted. "Study while others die? How very human." The meeting continued for several more hours. Plans were made for Operation Final Storm, the largest military campaign in galactic history. Every civilization would contribute ships and soldiers. The goal was to settle all territorial disputes through one massive conflict. As the delegates prepared to leave, Admiral Kesh approached Alex. "Commander, your heart is in the right place, but do not let your hopes blind you to reality. The galaxy is about to enter its darkest period. Prepare your people for what is coming." Alex nodded. "We will, Admiral. Thank you for the warning." As Alex walked back through the station's corridors, he passed groups of alien delegates making final preparations for war. Their voices were excited and determined. They spoke of glory, honor, and victory. None of them noticed the small device that Alex had quietly placed near the communication arrays. It looked like a simple maintenance scanner, the kind that repair crews used every day. Alex boarded his small human ship and set course for Earth. As the stars stretched into lines around him, he activated his secure communication system. "This is Stone," he said. "The Council has made their decision. Operation Final Storm will begin in 6 months." A voice crackled back through space. "Understood, Commander. How did they react to the suggestion?" Alex smiled sadly. "About as expected. They think we're naive children playing at politics." "Good," came the reply. "Let them keep thinking that. How many devices did you manage to place?" 17. All in key communication hubs, just as planned." "Excellent. Return to base, Commander. Phase 2 begins immediately. As his ship jumped into faster-than-light travel, Alex looked back at the space station growing smaller behind him. In 6 months, the galaxy would see the largest war in its history. But if humanity's plan worked, it would also be the last war the galaxy would ever know. The aliens thought humans were weak and naive. Soon, they would learn that there were different kinds of strength, and that sometimes the most powerful weapon was not a weapon at all. The blue marble of Earth hung in space like a jewel. Alex Stone's ship moved through the busy traffic around the planet. Cargo vessels carried supplies to the moon bases. Military ships practiced formations near the asteroid belt. Everything looked normal, but Alex knew that appearances could be deceiving. His ship landed at the Global Defense Headquarters in Geneva. The building was simple compared to the grand structures on alien worlds, but Alex had learned that humans often hid their most important work in ordinary places. President Maria Santos was waiting for him in the underground command center. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes, but Alex knew she was one of the smartest leaders Earth had ever produced. Around her sat the most important people in human government and military. "Welcome back, Commander," President Santos said. "We watched your report from the ship. The council went exactly as we expected." General Tom Williams, head of Earth Defense Force, leaned forward. "They really laughed when you suggested peace?" Alex nodded. General Corks nearly fell out of his chair. "They think we're children playing with toys." "Good," said Dr. James Carter, Earth's leading expert on alien life. "The longer they underestimate us, the better our chances." Dr. Carter was a thin man with wild hair who always seemed excited about something. Today he looked more excited than usual. He activated a holographic display that showed the 12 alien species from the council. "I've been studying our galactic neighbors for 20 years, Dr. Carter said. Every single species we've met has one thing in common. They all evolved from predator-prey relationships that built aggression into their very nature." The hologram showed a primitive Vorth creature hunting smaller animals. The Vorth come from apex predators. They see every interaction as a fight to be won. The image changed to show ancient krill creatures fighting over territory. The krill evolved from insects that had to compete for limited resources. Expansion and consumption are built into their DNA. More images followed. The lumens started as energy parasites. The Iron Brotherhood developed on a world where only the strongest metals survived. Every species learned that violence was the path to survival. Director Kate Ross from the Science Division raised her hand. "What about humans, Doctor?" Dr. Carter smiled. "That's what makes us special. Yes, we can be violent. Yes, we evolved from hunters. But we also evolved something else. Cooperation. We learned to hunt in groups, to share resources, to care for our weak and wounded." President Santos stood up. "Which brings us to why we're really here." She pressed a button on the table. The walls of the room became transparent, showing a massive elevator shaft that went deep into the earth. Far below, lights twinkled like stars. "Project Harmony," President Santos said. "For the past 20 years, while other species built bigger, guns and faster ships, we've been working on something different." The elevator arrived and the group stepped inside. As they descended, Alex felt his ears pop from the pressure change. The shaft was deeper than most ocean trenches. "We knew this day would come," General Williams said as they dropped through the earth. "The galaxy was always heading toward one final war. We could either join in the killing or find another way." The elevator stopped with a soft thud. The doors opened to reveal something that took Alex's breath away. The underground facility stretched as far as he could see. Thousands of people in white coats worked at gleaming machines. Robots moved supplies along endless conveyor belts. Massive screens showed star maps and alien ship designs. But what caught Alex's attention were the devices. Millions of small silver objects sat in organized rows. Each one was about the size of a human hand and shaped like a six-pointed star. "Welcome to the heart of Project Harmony," President Santos said. "Dr. Foster will explain what you're looking at." Dr. Emma Foster was the project's lead scientist. She was younger than Alex expected, with bright eyes and an eager voice. "Commander Stone, what you see here represents humanity's greatest achievement." She picked up one of the silver devices. "This is a harmony node. It looks simple, but inside is technology that took us 2 decades to develop." Alex examined the device. It felt warm to the touch and seemed to hum with energy. "What does it do?" "It creates what we call an empathy field," Dr. Foster explained. "When activated, it allows any thinking being within its range to feel the emotions and physical sensations of those around them." Alex frowned. "I don't understand." Dr. Foster led him to a demonstration area. 2 volunteers sat in chairs facing each other. Between them sat one of the silver devices. "Watch," Dr. Foster said. She activated the device. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then one volunteer pinched his own arm. The other volunteer jumped and rubbed his arm in the same spot. He felt the pinch even though he wasn't touched, Dr. Foster explained. "Now watch this." She asked the first volunteer to think about his daughter's birthday party. Suddenly, the second volunteer began to smile. Tears came to his eyes. "He's experiencing the same joy and love," Dr. Foster said. "The device doesn't read minds, but it shares emotional experiences." Alex began to understand. So if someone was about to hurt another person, they would feel the victim's fear and pain as if it were their own, Dr. Foster finished. Very few beings can cause suffering when they have to experience it directly. President Santos walked over to a massive wall display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked where battles were currently being fought. "We've run computer simulations thousands of times. When these devices reach critical mass across the galaxy, warfare becomes psychologically impossible." General Williams pointed to crates, being loaded onto transport ships. "We've been secretly placing the devices for months. They're disguised as communication relays and navigation beacons. Every major trade route, every military base, every populated system now has our devices. The aliens think they're routine maintenance equipment," Dr. Carter added with a grin. "We've been hiding them in plain sight." Alex walked through the facility, watching the final preparations. Workers were sealing the last batch of devices into shipping containers marked as Standard Communication Equipment, Earth Manufacturing. "How many devices are we talking about?" Alex asked. 50 million, Dr. Foster said proudly. "Enough to cover every inhabited system in the galaxy." Director Ross showed Alex a timeline on her tablet. "The last shipments go out tomorrow. Installation should be complete 3 days before Operation Final Storm begins." Alex felt a chill run down his spine. What if it doesn't work? What if the aliens figure out what we're doing? President Santos put her hand on his shoulder. "Then humanity will be branded as traitors by every civilization in the galaxy. We'll be hunted down and destroyed." "But if it works," General Williams said, "we end warfare forever." They walked to the Central Command Center where hundreds of technicians monitored the device network. Screens showed green dots spreading across the galaxy as more devices came online. 60% coverage, called out a technician. All systems showing green. Dr. Foster pulled up a psychological profile on her screen. "We've studied every major military leader in the galaxy. Once they experience what their enemies feel, the fear, the pain, the desire to return home to loved ones, they won't be able to continue fighting." Alex thought about General Corks and his harsh laughter. "Some of these beings have been fighting for centuries. Are you sure they'll change?" "Not immediately," Dr. Foster admitted. "But empathy is powerful. Once you truly understand someone else's suffering, it becomes very hard to cause more of it." Captain Lisa Reed approached the group. She was a decorated pilot who had volunteered for the most dangerous part of the mission. "The final deployment ships are ready, Mr. President. We can launch on your command." President Santos looked around the room at the faces of her team. These people had worked in secret for 20 years, knowing they might never get credit for their efforts. "The galaxy sees us as weak," she said. "They think we're too young, too soft, too naive to understand how the universe really works." She paused and looked at the screen showing the spreading network of devices. "Maybe they're right about us being different." But maybe being different is exactly what the galaxy needs. Alex watched as the final transport ships lifted off from hidden launch pads around the world. Each carried thousands of Harmony nodes to complete the network. In 72 hours, every major population center in the galaxy would be covered. "What happens after we activate the system?" Alex asked. Dr. Foster smiled. "Then we find out if humanity's greatest strength, our ability to feel what others feel, can save the galaxy from destroying itself." The room fell quiet except for the humming of computers and the soft beeping of status monitors. Somewhere above them, the stars waited. In 6 months, those stars would witness either the greatest war in galactic history or its final end. Alex looked at the faces around him, scientists, soldiers, leaders who had bet everything on a simple idea. That understanding each other was more powerful than destroying each other. Soon, the entire galaxy would find out if they were right. Captain Lisa Reed stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, watching the stars streak past in lines of light. Her ship was small and fast, built for stealth rather than combat. Behind her, 11 other human vessels followed in perfect formation, through the darkness of space. "Status report," Lisa said to her crew. Lieutenant Ben Davis checked his instruments. "All ships reporting ready, Captain. Harmony nodes are secured and ready for deployment." Lisa nodded. Each ship carried thousands of the silver devices that would complete humanity's secret network. They had been traveling for 3 weeks, moving through empty space between star systems to avoid detection. "Any sign of alien patrols?" Lisa asked. Sergeant Amy Cole monitored the sensor array. "Nothing on scanners, Captain. The galaxy is too busy preparing for war to notice a few small human ships." Lisa smiled grimly. That was exactly what they were counting on. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Operation Final Storm was beginning. The largest military buildup in galactic history was taking shape. Massive fleets gathered at staging points near disputed territories. Weapons that could destroy entire planets were being loaded onto warships. On the Vorth homeworld, General Corks reviewed his battle plans. His reptilian features showed satisfaction as he examined holographic displays of enemy positions. "The krill swarms will break against our superior firepower," he told his officers. "Their numbers mean nothing when we can vaporize their ships by the thousands." His aide, a younger Vorth named Colonel Dex, pointed to a section of the display. "What about the human forces, General?" General Corks laughed his harsh, barking laugh. "Humans. They have promised 12 ships for the entire campaign. 12. We have 12,000 ships in our reserve fleet alone. Perhaps they are holding back their real forces," Colonel Dex suggested. "No," General Cork said firmly. "They are exactly what they appear to be. Weak newcomers who talk about peace while others do the real work of conquest." Far away, Queen Nira of the Krill was having a similar conversation in her hive palace. The insect queen studied tactical displays showing human ship movements. "The humans are moving small groups through empty space," buzzed one of her advisors. "Their patterns make no military sense." Queen Nira's large eyes reflected the display lights. "They are probably running supply missions. Humans are good at logistics but poor at actual fighting." Neither alien leader suspected that the supply missions were actually humanity's most important military operation ever. Captain Lisa's fleet had reached its first target, the Nexus Station, a massive trading hub that connected 5 major star systems. Ships from dozens of different species docked there every day, making it perfect for humanity's needs. "Take us in slow," Lisa ordered. "We're just another cargo shipment." The Prometheus approached the station's docking bay. Lisa could see the busy traffic around the structure: Vorth military transports, krill swarm carriers, Lumen energy ships, and dozens of other alien vessels. "Docking control is requesting our manifest," Lieutenant Davis reported. "Send them the standard cover story," Lisa said. "We're delivering communication equipment for the war effort." The lie worked perfectly. Within minutes, the human ships were docked and unloading their cargo. The Harmony nodes looked exactly like the communication relays they were pretending to be. Station workers helped carry them to key locations throughout the structure. 37 devices placed. reported Chief Engineer Mark Webb over the comm system. All locations are optimal for maximum coverage. Lisa watched through security cameras as her team installed the final devices. Each node was designed to integrate seamlessly with existing station systems. To any casual observer, they were routine maintenance upgrades. Good work, Chief. Secure the area and return to the ship. This scene repeated itself across the galaxy. Human teams worked around the clock to install Harmony nodes at every major population center, military base, and transportation hub. The devices were disguised so well that alien technicians often helped with the installation. On the mining world of Titan's Gate, Sergeant Cole's team placed nodes throughout the orbital platforms where Vorth and Krill workers competed for valuable crystals. The two species had been fighting over mining rights for decades. Interesting, observed the Vorth mine supervisor as he watched the humans work. What do these new devices do? They improve communication efficiency during high-stress situations, Sergeant Cole replied smoothly. It was technically true, though not in the way the supervisor understood. At the Lumen Meditation Centers near the Galactic Core, Dr. Emma Foster herself led a team to install nodes in the energy temples. The Lumen monks welcomed the humans, believing the devices would enhance their spiritual practices. These will help spread harmony throughout the galaxy, Elder Zane told Dr. Foster as they placed a node in the main temple. Dr. Foster smiled. That's exactly what we're hoping for, Elder. The most dangerous installations happened at military bases. Captain Lisa personally led missions to the largest fleet staging areas, where millions of soldiers prepared for the coming war. At the Ebi, Iron Brotherhood Fortress of Steel Mountain, Lisa's team dressed as civilian contractors. They installed nodes in the main command center, while metal soldiers practiced battle formations outside. These humans work efficiently, noted Chancellor Rex as he watched them. Perhaps they have some value as support personnel. Installation complete, Lisa reported quietly into her comm device. Network coverage now at 85%. Back on Earth, President Santos and her team monitored the global operation from the underground command center. Green dots appeared on their galaxy map as each node came online. 90% coverage achieved, announced a technician. All systems showing optimal function. Dr. Carter studied the network patterns. The psychological effect should be immediate, once we activate. Every populated area in the galaxy will be covered. General Williams watched status reports flowing in from field teams. How are our people holding up? Better than expected, President Santos replied. No team has been discovered yet. The aliens really don't pay attention to routine maintenance. Work. Meanwhile, the galaxy's military buildup continued. Admiral Kesh of the Star Wanderers commanded the largest fleet ever assembled, over 1 million warships from 8 different species. The fleet gathered in the Crimson Nebula, preparing for the battle that would decide galactic dominance. Preparations are complete, Admiral Kesh announced to his mixed crew of alien officers. Operation Final Storm begins in 72 hours. The Admiral's aide, a young Star Wanderer named Commander Vale, reviewed the human contribution to the fleet. Sir, the humans have sent their promised 12 ships. They're requesting assignment to supply and communication duties. Admiral Kesh shook his silver head sadly. Give them whatever support role they want. At least they're trying to help, even if they can't fight. What Admiral Kesh didn't know was that those 12 human ships carried the final batch of Harmony nodes. As the massive alien fleet prepared for war, human technicians quietly installed the devices throughout the command ships. Captain Lisa stood in the cargo bay of a Vorth dreadnought, watching her team place the last nodes. Around them, reptilian soldiers loaded weapons that could crack planets in half. Final installation complete, she whispered into her comm. All fleet command ships are now covered. Excellent work, Captain, came President Santos's voice from Earth. Return to safe distance and await activation order. As Lisa's ships moved away from the massive fleet, she looked back at the gathering armada. Millions of beings prepared to kill each other in the name of their species' survival. Most of them were young soldiers who just wanted to return home to their families. In 72 hours, that wish might finally come true. Dr. Foster's voice came over the comm system. Network coverage is now complete. 50 million Harmony nodes are online and ready. Every major population center, military base, and fleet command ship in the galaxy is covered. President Santos took a deep breath. Phase 3 is authorized. All teams return to safe distance. In 72 hours, we either save the galaxy or become the most hated species in it. Lisa looked at her crew. These men and women had risked everything to plant humanity's seeds of peace throughout the stars. Now all they could do was wait and hope that empathy would prove stronger than hatred. The galaxy was about to find out if humans were right about the power of understanding each other. The biggest war in galactic history was about to become something completely different. The Battle of Crimson Nebula was about to begin. Never before had so many warships gathered in one place. The space around the red and purple clouds of the nebula was filled with over 10 million vessels from 8 different alien civilizations. Admiral Kesh stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Star of Unity. Through the massive viewing windows, he could see the greatest military force ever assembled. Vorth dreadnoughts the size of cities floated next to Krill swarm carriers that buzzed with millions of fighter craft. Lumen energy, ships glowed like small stars, while Iron Brotherhood vessels looked like flying fortresses made of pure metal. All fleets report ready for combat, announced Commander Vale. Admiral Kesh nodded his silver head. At over 1,000 years old, he had seen many wars, but nothing like this. Begin the final phase of Operation Final Storm. On Earth, deep underground in the Project Harmony Command Center, President Santos watched the same battle through long-range sensors. Her hand shook slightly as she gripped the activation device. All Harmony nodes show green status, Dr. Foster reported. Network is stable and ready for activation. Dr. Carter monitored the psychological readings from the battle zone. Stress levels are at maximum. Aggression markers are off the charts. If we're going to do this, it has to be now. President Santos looked around the room at her team. These people had worked for 20 years to reach this moment. Are we sure about this? General Williams leaned forward. Madam President, 10 billion beings are about to die in the next few hours. If there's any chance our plan can work? President Santos nodded. She placed her hand on the activation control. May God help us all. She pressed the button. Across the galaxy, 50 million Harmony nodes suddenly came to life. In the battle zone, the effect was immediate but invisible. Energy fields spread out from hidden devices on every ship, station, and platform. The fields, connected and overlapped, creating a web of empathy that covered the entire combat area. Admiral Kane of the Vorth Fleet was about to give the order to fire the first shot when something strange happened. He felt a sudden wave of fear that wasn't his own. Through the empathy field, he was experiencing the emotions of Lieutenant Zeta, a young Krill pilot in a small fighter ship nearby. The pilot was thinking about her eggs back in the hive, wondering if she would ever see them hatch. Admiral Kane stopped speaking. His reptilian features showed confusion as he felt the pilot's terror and desperate love for her unborn children. "Sir?" asked his weapons officer. "Should we begin the attack?" Kane opened his mouth to give the order, then closed it. The young Krill's fear felt as real as his own. Her desire to live, to return home, to protect her family. It was exactly what he felt when he thought of his own scaleslings back on the Vorth homeworld. Across the battle zone, the same thing was happening to millions of soldiers and officers. Queen, Nira felt the homesickness of an Iron Brotherhood soldier who missed his Metal Forge family. General Corks experienced the spiritual anguish of a Lumen warrior who questioned the morality of killing. Commander Vale suddenly understood the desperate hunger of Krill workers fighting over scarce resources. Captain Lisa watched from her small ship at the edge of the battle zone. Her sensors showed something that had never happened before in galactic history. Weapons powering down instead of firing. "It's working," she whispered to her crew. On the Vorth flagship crushing Victory, Admiral Kane struggled to understand what was happening to him. The emotions he was feeling weren't his own. but they felt completely real. He looked at his tactical display showing enemy ships, but now, instead of seeing targets to destroy, he saw the beings inside them. He felt their fear, their love for their families, their hope to survive the battle. "Admiral?" his weapons officer asked again. "Your orders, sir?" Kane looked at the firing controls. All he had to do was press one button and thousands of enemy ships would be destroyed. It should have been easy. He had done it countless times before, but now he could feel what those deaths would mean. He experienced the terror of pilots as their ships exploded. He felt the grief of families who would never see their loved ones return home. His clawed hand moved toward the firing button, then stopped. I can't," he said quietly. Similar scenes played out across the massive fleet. Gun crews felt their targets' fear and couldn't pull triggers. Bomber pilots experienced their victims' pain and turned away from attack runs. Ship captains sensed the desperation of enemy crews and found themselves unable to give attack orders. Queen Nira stood in her command chamber, surrounded by tactical displays showing perfect opportunities to destroy enemy vessels. Her advisors buzzed with excitement, ready to begin the Great Swarm attack. But Queen Nira was feeling something she had never experienced before, the protective love that other species felt for their young. Through the empathy field, she connected with a Vorth mother on a distant ship who was fighting to provide territory for her hatchlings. The emotions were exactly the same as what Queen Nira felt for her own eggs. "My queen," buzzed her war advisor. "The enemy fleets are vulnerable. We can crush them now." Queen Nira looked at her advisor with her large, compound eyes. "They're not enemies," she said slowly. "They're just parents, like us." On Earth, Dr. Foster watched the psychological readings with amazement. Aggression levels dropping by 90% across all species. Fear and anger being replaced by curiosity and compassion. The transformation wasn't instant. Some soldiers tried to fight the feelings, telling themselves that empathy was weakness, but the harmony fields were too strong. When someone aimed a weapon at another being, they immediately felt that being's terror and desire to live. Elder Zane of the Lumens had been preparing to drain energy from enemy ships when he suddenly felt their crew's life force as if it were his own. The idea of stealing that energy became as horrifying as the thought of draining his own life away. Chancellor Rex of the Iron Brotherhood experienced the loneliness and fear of organic beings for the first time. He realized that beneath their soft flesh, they felt the same need for belonging and security that drove his own metal people. The battle that was supposed to decide galactic dominance became something completely different. Instead of opening fire, ship commanders began opening communication channels. "Vorth fleet to Krill swarm," Admiral Kane transmitted. We're reading some kind of energy field. Are your people experiencing unusual sensations?" Queen Nira's voice came back, sounding confused but not hostile. "Yes, Admiral. Our pilots report feeling emotions that aren't their own. What's happening to us?" Similar conversations started across the battlefield. Enemies who had been ready to kill each other moments before now compared notes about the strange experience they were sharing. Dr. Carter, monitoring from Earth, smiled as he watched the communication traffic. They're talking to each other instead of shooting. The empathy fields are breaking down the barriers between species. The most remarkable change happened when repair crews from different fleets began helping each other. A Lumen energy being noticed that an Iron Brotherhood ship had damaged power systems. Instead of seeing an opportunity to attack a weakened enemy, the Lumen felt the crew's fear of dying in space and immediately offered to share energy. Within hours, the greatest battle fleet in galactic history had transformed into the largest relief and rescue operation ever attempted. Captain Lisa received a transmission from Admiral Kesh himself. "Human vessels, this is Fleet Command. We're experiencing some kind of phenomenon. Our crews are finding it impossible to engage in combat. Do you have any information about what's happening?" Lisa looked at her crew and smiled. "Admiral, this is Captain Reed. I think you'll find that your crews haven't lost the ability to fight. They've just discovered the ability to feel what their opponents feel." There was a long silence on the communication channel. Finally, Admiral Kesh's ancient voice came back, filled with wonder. Captain Reed, are you saying that what we're experiencing is empathy? Yes, sir. Complete, total empathy with every thinking being around you. Another long pause. Then, it's remarkable. I can feel the hopes and fears of beings I was ready to kill moments ago. They're just like us. They want to live, to protect their families, to find peace. President Santos listened to the communication from Earth. Tears ran down her face as she realized that humanity's impossible dream was actually working. The galaxy's greatest war had lasted exactly 0 minutes. Instead, it had become the beginning of something entirely new. 1 year had passed since the day that changed everything. The Great War Council chamber aboard Unity's Edge looked completely different now. The same room where alien leaders had once planned massive military campaigns was now filled with charts, showing trade routes, resource-sharing agreements, and joint scientific projects. Commander Alex Stone stood at the center of the transformed chamber, but his title had changed. He was now the first Galactic Harmony Coordinator, a position that didn't exist before humans introduced empathy to the galaxy. Around him sat the same alien leaders who had laughed at his suggestion of peace just 1 year ago. But their attitudes had changed completely. General Corks of the Vorth no longer wore military armor. Instead, he wore simple clothes marked with symbols of the new Galactic Cooperation Council. His reptilian features looked calm and thoughtful instead of aggressive. The territorial disputes in the Outer Rim have been resolved, he reported to the assembly. The Vorth and Krill have agreed to share the mining rights. Both species will benefit more from cooperation than they ever did from fighting. Queen Nira buzzed softly in agreement. Her insect-like body no longer carried weapons. The hive populations have grown by 40% since we stopped wasting resources on warfare. Our young are healthier and happier than ever before. Elder Zane's energy form glowed with peaceful colors. The Lumens have discovered that sharing spiritual knowledge brings more enlightenment than hoarding it. We have learned much from our new friends. Alex looked around the room with amazement. The same beings who had been ready to destroy each other now worked together like old friends. The change still seemed impossible even after living through it. The question before us today, Alex said, is whether to make the Harmony Network permanent. The devices can be turned off. The choice to keep peace must be yours to make freely. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. When the empathy fields first activated, some critics argued that forcing beings to feel each other's emotions was a form of mind control. Now, after a full year of unprecedented cooperation, the galaxy had to decide its own future. Chancellor Rex of the Iron Brotherhood spoke first. His metal body reflected the chamber's lights as he stood. Before the Harmony Network, my people spent 80% of our resources building weapons and defenses. Now we use those same resources to build homes, schools, and art. Our civilization has advanced more in 1 year than in the previous century. Admiral Kesh nodded his silver head slowly. The Star Wanderers have kept records for over 10,000 years. Never in our history have we seen such rapid progress in science, culture, and quality of life. Dr. Foster, who had traveled from Earth for this historic meeting, presented the statistical evidence. Galaxy-wide, we've seen a 90% reduction in conflicts of all kinds. Not just wars, but crime, domestic violence, even minor disputes. When people can feel each other's pain, they naturally choose kindness. Queen Nira raised one of her clawed arms. But what about our nature? The harmony fields don't change what we are inside. We're still the same species that fought for thousands of years. That's exactly the point, Alex replied. The empathy fields don't control your thoughts or change your personalities. They just let you experience what others experience. The choice to be peaceful comes from your own hearts. General Corks leaned forward. I still remember the moment when I first felt a Krill pilot's fear. It was like discovering I had been colorblind my whole life, and suddenly I could see new colors. The pilot's love for her eggs was exactly the same as my love for my hatchlings. Elder Zane's light brightened. We have learned that consciousness is universal, whether we are made of flesh, metal, or energy. We all share the same basic desires for safety, belonging, and purpose. The debate continued for hours, but it was different from the old war councils. Instead of angry arguments, there were thoughtful discussions. Instead of trying to dominate each other, the leaders genuinely listened to different viewpoints. Finally, Admiral Kesh called for the vote. All in favor of making the Harmony Network permanent? Every hand, claw, tentacle, and energy. Projection rose in agreement. The vote was unanimous. But the real proof of change wasn't in the council chamber. It was happening across the galaxy. On the former battleground of Crimson Nebula, the largest construction project in galactic history was taking place. The same location where 10 million warships had almost destroyed each other was now home to the Galactic Cooperation Center, a massive space station where all species worked together. Captain Lisa Reed, now promoted to admiral, oversaw the construction. Ships from every civilization contributed materials and labor. Vorth engineers worked alongside Krill builders. Lumen energy beings powered the construction, while Iron Brotherhood workers shaped the metal framework. "It's beautiful," said Lieutenant Davis, who had served with Lisa since the early days of Project Harmony. A year ago, this space was filled with weapons. Now it's filled with hope. Lisa smiled as she watched a group of young aliens from different species playing together in the station's recreation area. They were the first generation to grow up with the Harmony Network active. To them, feeling others' emotions was natural, and the idea of warfare seemed as foreign as flying without spaceships. On Earth, President Santos stood in the same underground command center where humanity had planned to save the galaxy. But now, the screen showed something wonderful instead of dangerous. Trade agreements flowed between former enemies. Scientific discoveries were shared freely. Art and culture spread across the stars. "Any regrets?" asked General Williams. President Santos shook her head. "We took the biggest risk in human history. We could have been destroyed for interfering in galactic politics. Instead, we gave the galaxy something it didn't know it needed." Dr. Carter, now the head of the new Galactic Empathy Institute, studied the latest reports. "The psychological effects continue to amaze me. Not only have we ended warfare, but we've accelerated cultural and scientific development. When species can truly understand each other, they learn from each other much faster. The changes weren't just political. They were personal. Former enemies had become friends. Vorth families adopted orphaned krill eggs. Lumen energy beings shared their spiritual practices with Iron Brotherhood communities. The galaxy had become one extended family. Alex stood on the observation deck of Unity's Edge looking out at the stars. A year ago, those same stars had been lit by the fires of war. Now they were connected by trade routes, communication networks, and friendship. "Commander Stone?" Alex turned to see a young human officer approaching. "It's Coordinator Stone now. Lieutenant, what can I do for you?" "Sir, there's a message from the Galactic Memorial Commission. They want to know what inscription to put on the monument at Crimson Nebula." Alex thought for a moment. The memorial would mark the place where warfare ended forever. It needed to capture not just what happened, but what it meant for the future. "Right. This," Alex said. "Here on this day, the galaxy learned that the strongest weapon against war is not a bigger gun, but a bigger heart. No generation will ever forget the day humans completely ended dangerous warfare, not through force, but through the simple act of helping us feel what others feel." The lieutenant wrote down the words carefully. "Should we add anything about humanity's role, sir?" Alex looked back at the stars. Out there, billions of beings from dozens of species were living, working, and playing together in peace. Children were growing up who would never know the fear of war. Scientists were making discoveries that benefited everyone. Artists were creating beauty that brought joy across the galaxy. "No," Alex said finally. "The important thing isn't who ended the war. The important thing is that it ended." As the lieutenant walked away, Alex remained on the observation deck. Tomorrow would bring new challenges: resource distribution, environmental protection, exploration of distant galaxies. But these were problems that could be solved through cooperation instead of conquest. In the distance, a mixed fleet of ships from 8 different species headed toward unexplored space. They weren't going as conquerors or colonizers, but as friends seeking new wonders to share with each other. Alex smiled as he watched them disappear into faster-than-light travel. The galaxy was no longer a place of endless conflict. It had become something humanity had always dreamed of but never dared hope for. A place where understanding conquered hatred, where empathy defeated aggression, and where peace was not just possible, but permanent. The age of warfare was over. The age of harmony had begun, and it would last forever.